house? Hello, hello. Are we all live at the moment? Oh yes, so I got a bit of a delay on the YouTube, so I'm trying to work out from the delay and everything on the live stream. So, everyone, hello, welcome. So this is Pride in Gloucestershire's talk on kink and fetish. I think this is one of the first times Pride has given us this platform to talk about kink and fetish, and I'd like to welcome you all to this amazing, groundbreaking talk, I think. So I just want to ask everyone in the Zoom call, because we're currently doing this on Zoom today, just to introduce yourself and explain who you are and why I invited you to here today as part of Pride in Gloucester and Animagi. So on my left is Zaina. So Zaina, would you like to talk a bit about yourself and why you're here?
Hello, everyone out there. My name's Zaina Rati, and I am, deep breath in, an LGBTQIA plus polyam CNM FET and kink specialist hypnopsychotherapist. So I'm based in Oxford, but at the moment, as we know, everybody is on Zoom. So all of my clients, and some of them are international or all over the world. I'm here this evening to kind of talk about mental health and kink and FET, and also talk about people at their feelings around this type of thing being at Pride. And the more we raise the visibility and the more we have conversations like this, the more comfortable everybody will feel.
That's amazing. I just quickly just want to ask you, pronouns for tonight are.
She, her, hers.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to move on. I did forget to introduce myself for the start. So hello everyone, I'm Thumper. I run a group called Animagi. We're mainly based in the southeast, but we do cover quite a lot of the south. We're an all-inclusive kink and fetish group. So we're currently working with Pride in Gloucestershire to try and make an inclusive area and try and keep the idea of kink and fetish throughout all of their activities and make sure it's spoken about appropriately. My pronouns are they, them. I will now jump to my right, which is John Southwest Fetish Men, not John Stockton. So John from Southwest Fetish Men.
Hi, my name's John. Thank you. I run like fetish events in the southwest area, so Gloucester, Bristol primarily, etc. And I'm here primarily to talk about diversity within the kink community, especially with regards to like prides, etc. My pronouns are he, him, and yeah, I think that covers me just. I think. Anything else you want to know?
Do you want to talk a bit about what Southwest Fetish Men is? So just a bit more description so everyone out there knows what the marvelous group is.
Yeah,
About.
certainly. So Southwest Fetishment is like a group that was established, ironically, in March 2020. Bad timing, I know. So what we're aiming to do is kind of break down the barriers between like the gay scene and the fetish scene, and help people to create like lasting relationships within the fetish scene. There seems to be a lot out there like, of people into kinks and into fetish, but especially so I've noticed in the southwest personally is the lack of socializing. And that's something that's basically what I wanted to increase. And myself and the two organisers, Ben and Jay, had the same views, and John also, who you'll meet in a moment. Um, so we've all come together and kind of put this place together. I'm gonna hopefully create websites and such for like a platform for people to come and meet that aren't on social media, and help people through finding their fetishes, I suppose, and helping introduce them to people to help them build longer lasting relationships, I suppose. Is that all you want? I can talk for hours. You'll find this.
That's fine. That's perfect. I just see John start to go, cut it, no, that's enough. One thing I would like to say, it's amazing for everyone who's currently on our live stream. We have got about 25 people watching, which is amazing to start off with. I've loved that you're all interacting in the comment section. If there is any questions that you have at any point in time, put them into the chat section, and we'll come back to them at the end where we're going to do a little Q&A. I will explain once we've introduced everyone how the evening's going to run, but if you have any questions about us or about anything that we do, put it in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end of the Q&A. So going on to the second line for me, second line on the left is Rogue. So Rogue is a lovely puppy and she'll explain to you who she is. Rogue, take it away.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so I'm Rogue. I've been a pup for about 6 years. I hope you can all hear me as well with the mask on. I am the first runner-up for the Puppy UK competition that was done last year. So I'm holding that over until October 2022, I believe, or 2021. One of those. I can't remember. Yeah, I'm here to talk about pup play and what it's all like in the community and how it can vary from pup to pup, basically. I also go by she/her pronouns. So yeah, that's me.
That's great. Would you like to discuss a bit more about so obviously it used to be called the Mr. Puppy UK competition. So they did a rebrand this year, didn't they, to Puppy UK. Do you want to explain a bit more in detail what you did for that and a bit about what Puppy UK means?
So from my viewpoint, the Puppy UK competition is kind of like to elect an ambassador for the pups to go around the UK and basically show that, and try and dispel all the stigma behind it. Of all, it's just highly sexualized and terrible, like not terrible, but it's not great. In order to do that, though, it was kind of done as like a fun competition. So we did an interview, we did a speech, which are all on my Twitter, by the way. We also did a performance piece, and then there was an audience vote. So I ended up with the first runner-up position. Hunter came first, and I think he will be the last of the Mr. Puppies as we now move on to the Puppy UK. Also, as far as I'm aware, I'm the only, and no, wait, I'm the first female to enter the competition. So we'll go with that.
which is amazing, and is amazing change from the Puppy UK team to now evidently say that anyone, no matter of gender or sexual orientation, is allowed to enter the contest, because we have got a diverse people in the puppy community, which we will talk about later. So I'm going to go to the next person. The next person on my list is Toku. Toku, hello.
You said my name wrong twice.
I know, sorry. It's a habit now. I apologize.
It's fine. Everyone will do it throughout the call. I accept my fate. Hello, everyone. I'm Toko. That's how you pronounce my name, everyone. So I am a Leatherman. I'm one of the founding members of the UK Bootblacks Association, which I'll talk a little bit more about what that is later. I've been active on the fetish scene for around 6 years. Throughout that time, my role has kind of changed quite a lot. And yeah, I'm also a big queer history nerd, which is why I was invited to come to this evening to talk a little bit about kind of fetish and its place within queer history. My pronouns are he, him. That's it.
That's amazing. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Toko.
Yay, well done.
Toko, yay! I did it finally. Finally, I got it right. I've known you for about a year, and I've finally got it right. Um, so, so we're going on to a different part of the leather community. We're going to go on to John. So John is currently the reigning Mr. Leather
I don't know
UK
about
title
raining,
holder.
to be honest. So, yeah, but hi everyone. Thanks for joining us all tonight. Yeah, as he's on my left, anyway, I'm probably the oldest one in the room actually, although I'm not a grandparent. Well, I'm really thrilled to be part of this evening. I think it gives me and all the guys from all the various parts of the fetish, the wider fetish community, the opportunity to talk about the things we care most about. I know Toko's already mentioned history, and I think that's an important thing for all of us to realize all our places within that history, within the wider LGBTQ plus community. So I'm really thrilled to be part of this tonight. Don't make the questions too hard, although we do like a challenge. On and off, I suppose, fetish-wise, I started as a gay skin way back in the late 80s, early 90s. That's the 1980s, 1990s. And that's kind of developed. And probably the last 5 or 6 years, my passion really has been very leather-based. So that's my part in this evening. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for accepting my invitation in your very busy
I didn't have any
schedule.
choice. You told me.
Did you know? I thought you had a choice. Consent is key in our community, as we always say. So we'll go next on to Steve, who is somewhere on my screen. Steve is from My Umbrella. So Steve, would you like to talk about yourself and My Umbrella?
Yeah, so my name's Steve. I am a homo-romantic, asexual pup. So that's the kind of mind-blowing bit, and we'll probably talk about that for as we go questions. I also go on behalf age, which is part of Pride, which is plus the patient on Reading, so we Pride to educate, socialise, and be a space everything identified LGBT plus as far as we are inclusivity.
So sorry, I think there was a bit of mic problem with Stephen. Oh, Stephen, your mic's going a bit dodgy.
Okay, let's try. Is that any better?
That's a lot better. You sound a bit like a Dalek. We all know these Zoom calls. We all drop on and off. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I don't know how far I got, but I work with a charity called My Umbrella LGBT, which is the education arm of Reading Pride. So we attend lots of Pride events to break down barriers, educate and socialise the community outside LGBT plus of the everything that's included under that umbrella, hence the name. We are a kink inclusive charity. I also am the chair of the North Somerset LGBT plus forum as well, hence why I'm in this office here, and you might see some signage behind me on the door. But I'm here in my capacity tonight as My Umbrella, and as essentially as also someone that likes to affiliate himself with the kink community.
That's amazing. So I'm just making sure that all our tech is working correctly. We just had a bit of a problem, but it's all fine. Hopefully we're all back to normal. So I think I've gone through everyone. Have I missed anyone? Wave your hand if I've missed you, because we've all rearranged. Every time we speak, you rearrange, and I'm like, oh, where's everyone gone? So obviously, what we're going to do this evening is we're going to talk about some key areas. So I think one of our key areas is what is kink and fetish. We're going to talk a bit about kink and fetish of Pride and representation of Pride, and then we're also going to try and talk a bit about mental health, as that's been really key at this time with COVID and generally there's a lot of mental health and kink and fetish, because there's a lot to think about. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go straight on to what is kink and fetish. What is this strange community that's brought all of us together today? So, and the one thing that I wanted to ask was, why do we say kink and fetish? Why don't we just use kink? Why don't we just use fetish? Why don't we just do kink/fetish? Why do we always put kink and fetish? So for me, kink is always an action or doing something, maybe, while fetish is more of an item, an object, or a part of clothing. But I think we all have different impressions, but which sort of have the same sort of connotation. I think Toku, we were talking just before we went live, and you had a sort of an idea in your mind, and probably explained it better than I do, why we use kink and fetish, not just kink and not just fetish.
Sure. So I would say that so a fetish, by its definition, is something that someone requires in order to have like sexual gratification. Whereas a fetish would more be something that it's not necessary, but it's just like added fun stuff. And it's for that reason that kink is more commonly associated with action, whereas fetish is more commonly associated with paraphilias towards particular items or materials or parts of the body.
Yeah. Has anyone got any added things that they want to add? Any other ideas about what kink and fetish is? Anything they want to put on the spin-off?
Kind of like literally the same as what I'm gonna get it wrong. Toko.
Yeah, you got it right.
I got it right.
What you've got to think of is Coco the clown, right? And then you get to Toko. That's the way to remember.
Excellent. Basically, the exact same. So I would say I have a foot fetish because I like feet. However, the kink aspect is like sniffing trainers and licking feet. That's how I see it. If that makes it easier for people to understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect example. So you've got a fetish for feet, but the actual action that you're doing to feet is the kink. I'm going to go back to you, Toku, because you're on my list of people to ask. So, Toku, you were saying in your introduction about your boot blacker, and you're one of the founders of the UK Boot Blackers Association, if I am correct.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you want to explain what boot blacking is, just to everyone?
Yes, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I am predominantly part of the leather community. And within the leather community, boot blacks are essentially people who, how do I put this? Take care of the predominantly boots, but also other leather items of members of the community. So typically at a leather event that is social, you will usually find me like on the floor, polishing people's boots, taking care of their leather, that kind of thing. The UK Boot Black Association was founded by myself, Craig, who I know is watching, and another friend of ours called David, who we all used to boot black together at the London Leather Social back in the before times. And through kind of working together, we realized that we were sharing a lot of techniques with one another, getting to try different products from one another. And we really wanted to create a space that would allow new people to come and learn the craft, and for people who were already experienced to share ideas, knowledge, practices, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that you did there, and definitely something that I'm wanting to get involved with, and something that I do always come to you and have mentioned once or twice. Can you look after my leather? I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let it be said, I want to say one thing, which is that if you are maybe thinking of getting into the leather scene, or you're part of the leather scene or anything like that, you don't know how to take care of your leathers, I don't care. I would rather you did absolutely nothing and brought them to myself or someone else who knows how to care for them. and let them do it. Because yeah, the worst thing you can do for leather is nothing. So having someone take care of them for you when you know that they are happy to do that, is definitely, just because you don't know how to do it, you know, there's people in the community who do and will happily do that for you, either as part of a dynamic, as part of a scene or a session or an event. I will, you know, happily do that for people at events. Also tipping, if you do get your boots or any of your leathers done, please do give us a tip. We do have to pay for the products ourselves, and it's always nice to just have that little appreciation for our hard work, but also for the time and money that we ourselves invest into your leather.
Great. Talking about leather, I think that moves quite nicely onto the current reigning Mr. Leather UK. The little reigning.
No, it's not raining here in Gloucester, but so what's your question for me then, Joshua?
So I just wanted you to sort of explain what the reigning Mr. Puppy, Mr. Leather, sorry, means. What the reigning Mr. Leather title means. What does Leather UK mean? And just talk a bit about the leather community, just in a short brief.
I think historically, when it comes to fetishes, the leather fetish has been there since the 40s or 50s. It's kind of grew out of that period post Stonewall, and it's been prevalent in the UK for, well, 40 years easily. No, 50 years easily. It certainly is a kind of reaction to how gay men were perceived 50 or 60 years ago, and it was a reaction to that, and it's something that can be seen very much as a sort of uniform. But for me personally, I think the role of any title holder is to bring a community together, and all of our fetish communities, whatever they might be, rubber, pups, skinheads or whatever, they have their ups and downs and they have fallings out. And I think from my point of view, if I can do anything in my year, that would be to try and cement some of those cracks back together, and hopefully be part of the process of resolving a few little problems we've hit upon in the last couple of years, from an administration point of view, and if you like, a kind of sexual politics point of view. My platform back at my election was this, and it was filth, basically, because everyone likes a bit of filth, but really what it stands for is friendship, inclusivity, love and fun. They're the reasons why any human being gets out of bed in the morning and is looking for, whether they're wearing gear or not. So if I can do that through visibility and communication, that's my aim. Obviously, the last 6 months has not been great for visibility, but that's my aim. As soon as we can get back up on our feet, get into our Wescos and get out there and start trotting the streets again.
That's great. Just talking about, so obviously we like to wear, I'm currently in my leather. Some of this is from, always say where your leather's from, supporting those small communities. I've got my waistcoat from Fetish Freak, my nice lovely top from Parallel Red, just putting it out there. So and some of us are wearing rubber tonight, some of us like to wear lycra. Why do we like to wear it? Obviously, as a therapist, Zaina, just going to push this nicely onto you. Why do we sort of have this attraction to wearing these items? Why do we like wearing these items? Is there some sort of therapy point of view you can put on this?
Is there an emotional point of view? Absolutely. You know, we can't always identify the roots of fetishes and kinks, but quite often it can be forbidden subjects. It can take us back to a different time in our lives. You know, they can be products of conditioning, of neurotransmitters, brain chemicals, lived experience. There's lots and lots of reasons why somebody might like to wear a particular feel of fabric or something over another. It can be about stimulus input, and then we can go off and maybe think about, okay, so that furries, and you know, this whole subject is so huge. And you know, if we look at 1 in 3 people have experimented with kind of non-standard sexual expression, there's a lot of people out there. And quite often people feel that they can't come forward, that they can't find community and belonging, and particularly when things are pathologized. And I think, you know, events like this and people coming forward and being out there and going, it's perfectly okay to authentically be you. If you want to wear latex, make sure you have talc. But if you want to, you know, if you want to wear leather, I had a fantastic experience back at Pride a few years ago with one of the previous Mr. Leather UKs, and they were leather top to toe, and it is very, very hot in June. You know, you've got to think practically, but also think about being yourself, and that's the most important thing in all of this.
That's amazing. That was an amazing point of view that I don't think we get enough. I think we always try and talk about it ourselves, and sometimes we can't explain it very well, and it's nice to have another point of view, a therapist's point of view of explaining why we like it. And also I've noticed on the comments, and I think on the board here, we've actually got quite a few puppies watching. So pup play, and we've currently got Puppy UK runner-up Rogue with us. I'm a pup, she's a pup, and also we've got Steve from My Umbrella, who is also dabbles in pup play. Would anyone like to talk a bit about pup play and what pup play means to them and why they like pup play?
I guess I'll take this one. Pup play is. Hold up. Let me just think. My brain is slow. Pup play is kind of like a different mindset. It can be hard to explain for different people because some people do it in a sexual way, some people do it in a social way. I do it in a social way. So going from a social way, pup play basically means you dress up as like a dog. I'm a specific breed. I'm a border collie. So I like to get into the mindset of the border collie, which means I'm quite fast. I love agility. I love doing obstacle courses. I love wrestling. I'm quite a hands full pup. But a lot of what is talked about in pup play is the pup space, which is kind of, I would kind of put it to kind of like top space, subspace, is that you get this, your alter ego comes out a lot more than if you just put the stuff on when you're not a pup or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Steve, did you want to add on?
Yeah, I'm absolutely over the moon because this is the first time I've actually ever met Rogue, and I'm a border collie too. I'm so happy about this. But yeah, absolutely what you said. I mean, I'm very much from a social aspect, being an asexual male. I identify as being a kinky asexual, which is kind of just putting it straight out there that my kink being involved with pup play, and also I'll just throw it out there as well, I'm also in the process of actually having a half fursuit made for me as well, as I'm looking to explore the furry fandom at the same time within my pup persona and my persona as Rocket, the border collie. Mine is very much about being able to chill out and be sociable and kind of just forget about the person that I am, because I'm not someone that sits down and does nothing. I'm constantly on the go. I'm always busy. I always like to be busy. And the reason why my pup persona came out as a border collie is because a border collie is a working dog, and I see myself as a working animal, and that's basically how my alter ego comes out, because my actual pup gear itself, I've built my own gear myself that basically is just a load of work wear. So I wear work combats, and I've got a almost like a battle jacket as well. Everything gets clipped on me. Most people that have seen me at a Pride event, I end up getting covered in key rings and bottle openers and all sorts of stuff. By the end, just running around with everyone else and getting involved in, just constantly on the go. So it is absolutely about being really sociable and just they're really.
Okay, I think Steve has gone a bit fuzzy again and gone a bit cutty-outy. I was going to lead on with a nice question about. Coming back.
I have never ever been happier in my entire life. It was amazing. Oh, still back?
Yep, you cut
I
out
think
for a
it's still
minute.
wearing out the microphone. I'm talking too much.
Yeah, it's right. You literally said, you came back with "I love," and I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So I was going to quickly go to you, Steve, just quickly just talk to you about, you obviously said you're asexual, which might confuse people when we're talking about kink and fetish, because people have got this preconceived idea that kink and fetish is sexual, but you're asexual. Do you want to explain that in a bit more detail and about the kink fetish community and diversity? If he's still there.
I mean,
We might have to skip the topic just for a minute while Steve. We'll move on. Unfortunately, Steve's gone a bit. Hey, well, does anyone else want to talk about sexual orientation, gender, and oh,
no, I'm still here.
still here? I was just about asking that you said you were
I am
asexuals, which
definitely
might.
here.
We were talking about you being asexual, and that it may confuse a few people because people got this preconceived idea. Do you want to talk about being asexual and having kink and being kinky and having a fetish?
Am I back? Hopefully
Yep,
I'm
you're back.
Yay! Right. Okay. As an asexual male, I identify with being not sexually attracted to anybody at all, but I'm romantically attracted to people of the same sex, hence homo-romantic asexual. I'm romantically attracted to my husband, who is off camera but is sat in the same office as me, who also identifies as my handler. And essentially my kink being a pup and identifying as pup play is my form of escapism. There is nothing sexual in it, not on the basis that I don't know what sex is, because I've had sex and it's not for me. It just doesn't do anything for me. But my kink is in a way where I can escape and I can be very different to who I am in this sense, so that I can relax and kind of, it's almost like a really, really healthy outlet for me. But again, in a sense where it's more of a social aspect than anything else.
Sounds great. So we've also got some different sexual orientations on and gender identities on the panel today. Rogue, you're obviously female, and you identify as.
So actually, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I previously identified as a lesbian, so I'd only be with other women. However, in recent times, obviously not with COVID, excluding COVID, but in recent times, I would like to kind of like identify myself as homo-romantic, but also bisexual. So I'd only want to date another girl, but I'm okay with playing with other people, no matter what their gender is.
And I think we had a bit of a conversation before we were talking about this, and I think it's really interesting that we've got different sexual orientations, and the difference between a romantic and sexual orientation is very important. And then also add in gender as well. So I am genderqueer. I use pronouns they, them. I typically do express masculine, but I am delving into more feminine expression. Toku, do you want to talk about your gender identity? I think it'd be quite nice for you to talk about.
Sure.
If that's right.
Yeah, sure.
Well.
So I identify as male. Obviously, I use he/him pronouns, and I also am transsexual. So I was not born male, but I now am male, basically. And yeah, for me, actually, I think leather is the part of the reason I'm drawn to leather is because it's by its nature very masculine, and it just, yeah, therefore it makes me feel like I feel the most myself when I am in leather, because it allows me to present this like hyper masculinity, that on some level I wasn't sure I would ever be able to access, but here I am, pretty much thriving in the leather community. It's pretty interesting as well. The leather community is increasingly becoming more visible in its diversity. So the current international Mr. Leather is openly trans, for example. And yeah, it's really good to see like positive change starting to happen within the community. But I, as I say, I've always found it to be a very accepting community, just in general.
Yeah. So, and I think there's quite a lot of history with us, with the leather community, especially being very inclusive quite early on.
Yes.
And you can see obviously that we are quite inclusive. But I say, and I just wanted to ask you that obviously we are, as a community and as a wider population, improving diversity and inclusion. Is there anywhere that you can see that there are steps needed to go forward? Is there anywhere that we're lacking?
Yeah,
So that was to say, sorry,
sorry,
we can come back to you afterwards. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I think within the community, if you look at the type of statistics around kind of over 60% of Black people experiencing discrimination within the LGBTQIA+ community, if this issue isn't completely solved within this community, and finding and fostering, obviously when it's a time when there's not a global pandemic, open and honest spaces for people to be authentically themselves, I think is really important. When we talk about diversity and we talk about inclusion, that also means that means race and ethnicity. So people really being aware of the difference between race and ethnicity, with the fact that if you have a disability, being within BDSM, kink, and fet life can be really, really freeing, because it's all outside of this societal narrative, which tends to be around penetrative sex or PIV sex, and that anything else is just foreplay, that all kink and fet is just the bit you do before you actually have sex, right? And that's not it at all. And I think there are lots of people who find this community extremely freeing to being authentically themselves. There are some things, if we think about kind of race play, and how race play has been kind of said to be completely taboo. And if something is completely taboo, then you're kind of denying people. It's through a white lens that it's being denied and called taboo. But for some people, it's around exploring, identifying, and understanding and discussing current and historical societal inequalities. Pride was a riot, and it was started by Black trans people. And so I think there are a lot that needs to be done, that can be done, to increase the inclusivity and diversity of the community as a whole, and that includes providing safe spaces to belong.
That's amazing. I think we're definitely on the way. John, quickly, do you want to say something?
I mean, first of all, I agree 100% with everything Zaina has just said, and it's really nice to hear your take on it as well, so thank you for that one. I think, safe spaces at prides, etc. are useful because people sometimes struggle to express themselves. I myself was brought up in a very religious household. I was a Jehovah's Witness, so you can imagine that was quite interesting. And finding the kink community helped me come through that, and speaking to people, and by having safe spaces to go to, which sometimes I had to create the safe space for myself to be in, which sounds a bit odd, but having that really helped me push through into who I am today. Now, like my interest in rubber, for example, the reason I'm into it is because it forces me to be myself. I cannot hide any part of my body while I am in skin tight rubber. Now, it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not going to be. That's kind of the fun of it. But being this body conscious Jehovah's Witness religious child, creating safe spaces and then having literally just going to them and presenting in an open fashion and letting people just be themselves, and as John said earlier, filth, let people have fun, create those friendships, and just that's what we need to really push going forward. Just, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, who you are, why you are, welcome basically is what I want to see.
Just on that, do you think there's any way that organisations like Southwest Fetish Men can be better, that can have that? Obviously, we talked about safe spaces. Is there any way that, obviously, you know, we're in a virtual world at the moment, and most of the group is all on Facebook and stuff like that. Is there any way that, as organisations, you can help uplift those communities?
So stuff that we've looked at doing is like having really large, how do I describe, making sure we've got a presence at Prides. Now, there's obviously a big open question as to whether Fetish should be at Pride, and whether what should it be, an 18 plus only area, should it, you know, there's a lot of questions around that. But I think having, even if it's not in gear, making sure there is a presence at Prides to help educate and help people realise that it's okay. I remember when I was literally probably 12, 13, seeing a video of somebody being flogged, without going into too much detail, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's really interesting. And I felt disgusted with myself because of my upbringing and how I was religious. I felt like I shouldn't be having these thoughts. This is wrong. That's nasty. You're going to hell for this. And, you know, that's basically, I think what we need to have is a presence for people to go and to sometimes it's venting, sometimes it's having a conversation about what they're into, sometimes it's providing something for people to lean on. This is why I want the website to have like an entire section where they can contact someone anonymously and talk about what's going on with themselves, and then they can get an experienced kinkster to message them again anonymously and just be like, hi, I hear you're going through this, it's okay. And providing that's all what we need to really have is, it doesn't, like I said earlier, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, why you are, how you are, who you were. It's about what you are now and what you're experiencing now, and I think we just need to make sure we're supporting that. Southwest Fetish Men, for me, is going to be about supporting people through their journey as much as it is having fun, if that makes sense. It's about socializing and building friendships and connections whilst helping people realize who they are. And that's, I've helped a number of my friends discover their kinks, and it's amazing to be part of that journey. And it's something, again, if anyone's listening and they want to reach out, please do. I'm more than happy to listen to your story. And if you're religious and you're going through something similar to me, again, more than happy to talk about that, because it's definitely something that, it's a kind of like a dark horse, like, oh, you're religious and you're kinky. Interesting. Yeah, am I rambling? Sorry.
No, not at all, Jonathan, actually. And Joshua has been good enough to let me butt in at the end of this. So I was just going to reflect on my thoughts about Birmingham Fetish Men, which obviously has been around 5 years now. And I know Southwest Fetish Men is very much in the same vein, the same model. We've had our ups and downs there where people haven't necessarily felt, although in a safe space, haven't necessarily felt included, felt a little bit left out, maybe thought twice about going again. And it's very easy to fall into that pit to create something, an environment, whether it's a pride parade or an event or something like that. And BFM events are, you know, mildly sexual at the very most. You know, it's more about fun, people catching up, making friends, and all the rest of it. And I think if there's no better support structure, whether a guy or a girl is in gear or not, it's the community of others, getting everyone together in a space where they know that they can feel safe and they can behave in a way that's appropriate to how they're feeling. I'm not going to ramble, but you know, I think that's very important. But it really is horses for courses. It's very tricky to get the balance right sometimes. Yeah.
That's great. Sorry, I've just sort of had a little bit of a cough. I don't know if I feel a little bit emotional after that, or I've just got a bit of a cold.
We thought you were drowsing off.
Oh no, no, definitely not. Just trying to find my page. So I just wanted, we're talking about Pride quite a lot at the moment. It sort of naturally fell on. We're obviously being hosted by Pride in Gloucestershire, who thankfully gave us this platform. But how do we feel at Prides? How have we felt in Prides? I know, Steve, you go to a lot of Prides all over the country. How have you felt in gear? And then obviously happy to chat and take other people's opinions. You're on mute, darling.
Now I'm not on mute. There we go.
Now you're not on mute. There you go.
There we go. You'd never think I actually work in IT, would you? It's terrifying. I actually consider myself incredibly lucky to have an amazing charity that sits behind me, which is my umbrella, and basically let me just do what the hell I like, and embrace this wonderful journey that I've been on. And this is what's been really good about it, because with all the different Pride events that I have been able to get to, and see how the community is embraced by different pockets of the LGBT plus community, and how certain people are kind of drawn into certain areas, it actually made it a lot easier for me, as someone that has never experienced this in its entirety in my entire life, to just be really upfront and say, do you know what, I actually think I can relate to this, and I feel comfortable to be able to talk about this and to be able to explore it. But what's really nice is that you're able to have very frank conversations with individuals when we're actually behind and in our gazebo and behind our stall, and we're talking about all the different flags, all the different identities, because we produce this wonderful 30-page booklet on all the different flags. It's got kinks and fetish and everything all in there. And to actually have some brilliant conversations with people that you wouldn't know them from anybody else whatsoever if you had seen them on the street, to then be able to have a conversation about if they're into either a kink or a fetish, and for them to be really comfortable to actually tell you that they have this kink or fetish. And the one thing that really sits out in my mind, and I'm absolutely, totally not saying this because it's supported by Pride in Gloucester, but the one point that I remember from last year when we attended Pride in Gloucester was a lady that came up to our stall who must have been in the region of around the mid 50s. It's I'm rubbish with my judge of age, but she was able to very confidently come up, and we were just talking about all the different flags and having a look through the booklet and having a look at what was on the table with all the different laminator sheets that we have. And she turned around and just went, oh, it's really nice to see that a pony play flag is out there. And it's, oh, you understand what pony play is? And so, yes, I do. I actually do pony play. And it was brilliant because we were all stood behind going, this is brilliant. This is a real proper epiphany to actually see that someone is that comfortable to be able to just say that in that environment. And I think we have to give credit to those prides that embrace the whole spectrum of diversity across the LGBTQ plus community, because that essentially is what Pride is about. It's about being proud of who you are as an individual, and also about being proud to actually say that that's who you are. So it has been an amazing experience, and continues to be an amazing experience. And I know that there's questions out there. And I know that before we started this chat, I threw quite inadvertently into our chat room and filled the screen with with a huge barrage of questions that were thrown at me after I basically decided that on the back of something annoying happening a few weeks ago, which kind of involved the charity I work with as my umbrella, basically being mentioned in an article. I got quite passionate about it, and I went, no, I'm not having this, and straight away got onto the laptop and just tapping and going, right, I'm going to tell everybody that this isn't right, and you should embrace everyone for who they are and what they are and everything like that. And what was great is I got so much love back for that, to actually say, actually, that's really good to hear. But also from the other side, it was really good that there were people that were comfortable enough to say, well, actually, within that environment, I have some questions about how the LGBTQ community, certainly within Kink Fetish, and make inclusive. In many respects, some Kink and Fetish is very overly sexualized. And how do we then make a Pride event family friendly if there's going to be all that going on? And I think I'm just going to kind of throw that back now, because I think I've opened the can of worms.
You're breaking up a little, but yeah, you seem to, after you get a point, it starts breaking up a little, but it's fine. Yeah, it's open convo to anyone. So if anyone would like to say anything,
How can you make it family friendly? Because it's not all about sex. For a lot, and I get where people are coming from, and there is a parent in here, I'm sure, that can spread some light on this later on. But personally, what I'm wearing this isn't all about sex. I'm wearing this because it helps me be myself, and wearing this stuff allows me to not hide who I am, and it makes me feel amazing. So I suppose I get that a lot of parents will be nervous because it's all sexualized, and you see someone in like a full latex suit and you'll instantly think, rock star or gay. But obviously it's gay pride, we know what it is. But to me, it's not a sexual thing, and I think that's what we're trying to push about the kink side. Yes, okay, there is sex involved, but a lot of what we do helps people come out as themselves. And I don't know, I'm not going to ramble on, because I'm sure other people have points.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly go to Zaina. I know, Zaina, you're a parent, and I don't know if you mind me saying grandparent.
I am indeed a grandmother. God bless their little socks. Yeah, when you have this kind of over-sexualized view of exactly what kink and fet is, people miss so many other parts of it. They miss the bit that actually people can re-script trauma through BDSM, kink and fet. There are lots of other positives, and people kind of get a little bit confused between what some people call resistance play, some people call it consensual non-consent, and what happens is you are re-scripting trauma through role play. You aren't reenacting trauma through role play. There is a huge difference, and quite often people get that confused. As a parent who has had their 14-year-old actually at the time march in a pride parade, pride is about creating a safe space for people to be authentic. Absolutely, there needs to be work on all sides so that you aren't doing anything that somebody might deem inappropriate. And to be honest, if we have these open methods of communication and go, okay, so this is okay to wear, this may be not so okay to wear, and work together, then actually we can work towards a solution where everybody feels comfortable. Whether you're taking granny or whether you're taking your 5-year-old, everybody can be there, because everybody has the right to be included.
Yeah, and I think especially when we're talking about prides, we should be saying prides, because they are for everyone. It's not gay pride, it's not lesbian pride, it's pride. it's Oxford Pride, it's Reading Pride, because Pride is for everyone. Everyone is able to come to Pride. We have got obviously specialist prides like bi prides, pride bring evident awareness in our community where needed, and trans pride evidence awareness where we need it, because fortunately that has been sometimes left in the background. And
absolutely, yeah, there would be no need for bi pride, black pride and trans pride if prides as a collective group made everybody feel included.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't agree more actually with that, Zane. I've been to Black Pride the last couple of years in London, and I've got to say it's kind of like going back to prides like they used to be. There was a real sense of community about them. The sad spin to it being, as you say, it's sad in a way that they're separate. That the trans community, the black community, or whatever, feel that they need to have a pride outside of the greater kind of pride family. And you know, and I'm sure in the States they probably have leather pride. Well, they do have leather prides in Europe and all the rest of it. So whether it's to actually, you know, it's that kind of, I don't know, confirmation of our kind of you know, our personal sort of space that we want to create or not, I don't know. But it seems a shame that sometimes, you know, but then, I mean, you could throw the question open about flags as well, and the progress flag and the inclusive flag, and does that need to be any different? It's a tough one, but I really hope we get there. I genuinely do.
Absolutely, John. It's about this kind of thing that we call in-group, out-group bias. And that happens whether you are a minority within a minority or not.
Yeah.
So I actually, for Trans Pride, obviously it didn't happen this year, but for the previous year, organised a group of us who went together, all kinksters, some trans, some allies, like a very diverse group of us went down. And it was probably, in my mind, it's one of the best things I've done within the fetish community, because like being kinky is a really huge part of my identity. Like, as John already said, it really is what allows me to be myself, and being able to represent that at Trans Pride alongside other trans people who felt that way, and alongside allies who, you know, are part of this community who I know fiercely have my back, was really special. Like, Leathermen have always been protectors within the LGBT community. We've always had values of honor and integrity and of fighting for justice. And it was really good to kind of see those values actualized in a group of us getting together to go to Trans Pride, to both kind of come together as trans kinksters to show support from within the community. It was really special. But we did get quite a lot of backlash with people saying, you know, oh, well, we don't want trans people to be associated with fetishism, which I understand. But at the same time, like, I am a fetishist, and I am also trans. And I feel that people should feel free to express all aspects of their identity that are important to them at Pride events. And because, you know, kink is so often viewed as sexual, but no one there that day was doing anything that was inappropriate. We were just there wearing clothes that made us feel good and made us feel comfortable in our bodies, which surely is kind of what the trans community is all about, really. So yeah, it's kind of my take on that.
I was just also going to talk about, just to see a hand. So I'll quickly pass over to John if you want to, and then we'll come back and I'll just talk a bit more about. Or do you not want to talk anymore? I just see he's like.
I was literally kind of like, I was literally, just so everyone can see now, I'm on the screen. I was doing a fist bump because I was literally like, yes, that's everything I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And it's like Toko was just saying, it makes me feel like myself, and that's why I wear it, and everyone does have the right to say it. So as Toko was saying that, I was kind of going, yes, and so he thought I was wanting to talk, and I was just getting really excited. So
also, I
remember back. I know we're talking about fetish identity and so, but I remember back a few years. and there were an Indian contingent who marched on the parade in Birmingham. And I remember as we all assembled in Millennium Square, or Victoria Square, whatever it is, they were so apprehensive, they were so worried, they were wearing kind of traditional Indian costume and so on, and they looked fantastic, but you could see they were petrified because they were worried about the response of their wider community, the Hindu community. And they, within 10 minutes, they'd felt so kind of embraced by everybody, from the sternest looking, pervious looking leather man to the cheerfulest puppy, and everybody had embraced them. And they were singing their songs and banging their drums as they did that parade. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us. If there's anything that reinforces, our feelings about perhaps our families and further afield, what a great lesson I think they taught us all. And they had a fantastic day. They were on the news and everything. It was absolutely remarkable, and it brought a smile to everyone's face. So I think that was a real incentive for all of us to carry on doing what we do at these kind of events. It really is.
And I guess, so I was going to also, just before we got onto that, I was going to say, so we were also talking a bit about prides, and as obviously I've told you touched a little bit on about the values of the leather community, and obviously the leather community, not many people know, have actually got a history and quite a woven history of pride. Did you want to try and explain that and talk about leather history and pride history?
Sure. So I can talk a little bit on leather history. So yeah, just a little bit. So the leather community really comes from the military, actually. So basically, World War II, a lot of soldiers who fought there found that was kind of their first experience of these all-male, very regimented, very strict structures. So after World War II, what we see is an emergence of the gay BDSM scene, where people have found this strictness, this protocol, etc., and in some cases also the uniforms, all to be very arousing. So they seek to create a community for themselves there, which is where you get kind of old guard leather, which is very military inspired, both in its aesthetic and also in its behavior. And then at the same time, you also see an emergence of biker culture, because I didn't know this until very recently, but at least in the States, a lot of the soldiers were given bikes during the war, which they got to keep upon returning home. So suddenly you have all these people with bikes and leathers, and we start to see biker clubs emerging, which are largely heterosexual. But then basically gay men who are into BDSM very quickly realize, we can found biker clubs which look completely legitimate and heterosexual, but are actually secret clubs for us to meet other gay men who are into the same kind of sex as us, because at the time, this is in like the 50s, 60s, and it was still illegal to be gay. So it all had to be very covert. So that's kind of how we see the emergence of leather culture and the coming together of this military, strict protocol regiment with this rebellious kind of counterculture of bikers, but also that is kind of inherent within queer culture as well, to be counterculture. So I would say that leather aesthetically also, because of this, occupies its own form of masculinity that is influenced by heterosexual masculinity, but is still distinctly separate. So one of my favorite, ever kind of leather stories, the Stonewall riots, for those of you who don't know, were kind of, we touched on it earlier, were the catalyst for gay rights in the United States. So there was plenty of activism before, and there was plenty of activism after, which enabled the progress to be made. But that particular moment was like the spark. So during the Stonewall riots, they broke out because the police had raided the Stonewall Inn. They'd bundled all these people from the bar into the back of their wagon, and this one butch lesbian fought back to try and get them off, and at that moment the riots erupted, pretty much. So as the riots erupted, there's these two men sat in the back of the van, and they realize the doors are still open, they can make a break for it. So they run out of the doors, but they're handcuffed together. So they're running around the streets, handcuffed together, no idea what to do. They come across a group of leather men, and they go up to them, and they're just like, help, do you have police handcuff keys? And they're like, oh yeah, of course we do. Undo the handcuffs, off they go. I just think it's things like that, like those little moments of the leather community has got so many little stories like that. If you look at kind of when prides really started to pick up as becoming bigger things during the late 70s, 80s, if you find photos from prides around that time, you will see leather men. Certainly in the big cities, you will see leather men in a lot of them. Oftentimes, again, on motorbikes, because historically it's been very tied to motorbiking, but less so now. But yeah, like leathermen have always been at Pride, and fetishists have always been at Pride, and have always been there to show a type of queer life that is distinct from heterosexuality and is distinct from ideas of normative sexuality as well. But as I said, because you have the military influence, you also have these ideas of protection and of fighting for what is right.
But I think also on the back of that, Taco, just not to nick your namesake, you'll many of you.
Oh yes, Tom of Finland, of course. I'm sorry, I ruined the surprise.
Well, I was going to chip in actually on your namesake there. Many of you.
Yeah, no, go.
But there was very much a culture of in the 40s and 50s, as Taco's already said, that it was kind of reaction to everything. But for the leather guys, but also most gay men were perceived as being weak, feminine. I know these are opinions now that we look at and we think, well, they're wrong, you know, but women were very much second-class citizens. So if you fitted into that category as a gay man, even though you couldn't be open about it, that's how you were perceived by society. So that leather culture was fueled by a lot of guys that wanted to get into a very kind of counterculture, that kind of masculine side of it, and it just fits in so well. And the art that Tom of Finland was producing fueled that along. And if anyone's ever seen any of Tom's work, we're not all that big, but you know, it's kind of it's a fun read with a glass of cocoa on an evening. But that's definitely the case, because a lot of men just didn't want to be seen as sissy men, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in there, Taco.
Oh no, it's interesting. There's a lot of rules in old leather clubs, both like as in biker clubs, but also physical spaces, leather bars and stuff, where like you wouldn't be allowed in if you were wearing cologne, because that was deemed too feminine.
Cologne
and things like that.
No.
Yeah, like it was very like very masculine, but in a way that, like I say, in a way that certainly then and also now, I think, whilst it does reflect masculinity and particularly working class masculinity quite a lot, it also has its own distinct kind of queer spin on it, you know?
But I think all these things, they kind of fragment. I mean, the pup community isn't just the pub community, is it? I know, you know, with furries in there as well. I think a lot of these communities do fragment a little bit. And there are a lot of very old school leather men who absolutely, the whiff of deodorant would have them fainting. Well, in their heads, they'd be fainting, would actually be fainting. Of course, that would be shocking. So I think these things do go in slightly different ways. There are a lot of younger guys coming into the leather community, and it's a whole fresh new perspective on things. And they're far more in tune with what's going on in the world than others in a lot of cases. So yeah. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's just the way things develop and how they kind of grow and evolve. Yeah.
I was going to say, because obviously we talked quite a lot about leather men, because quite a few of us are leather men. We also have leather queers. Hello. And also we do have leather dykes. I don't know if anyone's got any expertise on them, but leather dykes were around at the same time, and they were big feminists of the time, and there were sometimes they were put in a bit of a struggle sometimes, because obviously some of them, it was all associating with gays and gay men, and should we be doing that because feminism, but they've sort of founded that idea of feminism for all, and they were very strict with that, and they did a lot for gay rights, and they did a lot for HIV, gay rights and male rights, and also female, but also they did do a lot with the Leathermen during the HIV and AIDS crisis, which I think is an important nod to make. The really appalling thing that affected our community very severely was HIV and AIDS, and still affects our community a lot today. And there were Leatherdites and Leatherqueers who helped fund people in hospitals, especially in America, and bring awareness to it. I don't know if anyone's got any history, any sort of comments on Leatherdikes or HIV and the AIDS crisis with the Kink and Fetish community. I probably spoke about it too much and stole everyone's thunder, but sorry for that.
There's probably only me and Zaina that probably maybe that grew up during that period in the 80s where it was at its absolute worst. And I think as a community, not just the leather community, I think the whole gay community, and I'm including the whole LGBTQ plus within that, there was so little support from outside. There was, I don't want to talk politics, but there wasn't really the money for it. The media were absolutely at our throats. Seriously, front page headlines such as they all should be put in effectively concentration camps and things like this. I remember it. And so all the work that had been done in the 70s with the campaign for homosexual equality and so on was completely destroyed in the early 80s by that disgusting, horrible, vile disease. And it just turned so much of society against us. But of course, that's kind of moved away now. But the fact that, you know, straight people were just as susceptible as gay people, that didn't seem to interest the media. So sorry to put a downer on it, but it did show how the whole community as a whole really did rally around those who were suffering from it. Yeah.
And I think it wasn't just the first time that, you know, you had that and then everybody rallied together, and then you had Section 28, for instance. Yeah. So we lost a whole generation of our elders during the AIDS crisis, and we then have Section 28 where we then can't educate young people.
Yeah.
And now you are having a situation where you're having teachers standing in school trying to teach LGBTQIA plus education, and they didn't get it themselves because Section 28 was enforced when they were at school.
Yeah. And I think it's also made us lose a lot of our history as well. So education for us, but also I think we lost a lot of LGBTQ plus history because we weren't getting it we didn't get it handed down, because a lot of the people who withheld that history from people past unfortunately died during that time. And I think we've got stuff written down, we've got stuff from people who did survive and pass down stories which are amazing, like Toku told that amazing story about running around in handcuffs, and then some leather men going, well, I've got a key, I use these every day. Not really sort of idea. And I think it's an important thing. I think we do need to take a nod to
we do, and
how much
sorry to butt in.
us.
I think because this is something I feel very strongly about. So I'll try not to be too much of a downer. But if there's any time for anyone to go and get checked and maintain quarterly STI checks, now is the time, because lockdown has given this golden opportunity for all of us within the community and further afield to go and get checked, get our sexual health checked, because the chances that through, I don't know, anonymous encounters or whatever have been so greatly reduced during this period that now is the perfect time to get tested. And I would say that, you know, for those at most risk, PrEP, NHS England have now confirmed, in addition to Wales and Scotland, PrEP will be available to those in more susceptible groups. So sorry, I'm doing the old manny bit now, but that is, as we were
I'm with you on that John,
100%,
obviously
yeah.
November is National AIDS Awareness Month, and we always have a vigil in Oxford to remember those that we've lost and those that continue to fight against the disease. And absolutely, go and get checked. It's going to take seconds, and you are better off knowing your status than not.
So I'm just going to do a bit of advertising. All this week we have got the Eddystone Trust in the Pride Hub in Gloucester in King's Walk. I'm going to try and ask the lovely person who's doing the stream for me to hopefully put a link to the Eddystone Trust in the chat. They are based in Gloucestershire, Cornwall, Devon, Somerset. If not, the Terence Higgins Trust, I believe, do HIV testing all over the country. So look at search up Terence Higgins Trust, HIV, get a test, get tested, know your status.
I'm sorry to butt in again because I've done quite a bit on this, so I promise I will shut up afterwards. On my Mr. Leather UK Facebook page, if you scroll down a little bit, I've put all the links for England, Scotland, Wales via Terence Higgins. There's all the and on the Terence Higgins Trust page is very good, because if you put in your postcode, say if for example, your postcode was Gloucester GL1, it will direct you to Hope House, which is the local section. And the same would apply for Oxfordshire and so on and so forth. And they are just so professional, outstanding. The PrEP trial has just finished in Gloucester, and they've been absolutely outstanding. And it's really, I can't urge you enough. Okay, so I will shut up now.
One thing I will bring up, and something that we've mentioned a lot about getting tested. Oh, it's just in my connection when Am I right? Can you hear me?
It's going a bit iffy, but it's all right. Just keep going.
Oh,
keep going.
Better? Okay. If anyone has just been checked and they've just found that they have a positive diagnosis, and you want some help through that, there is a charity called Brigstow. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, and they help people come to terms with their new HIV status and provide support groups and support for anyone that is struggling with their diagnosis. So we've obviously spoken a lot about you should get tested, you should know, and absolutely everything John and Zaina and Thumper have said, absolutely you need to know, and you need to get checked, you need to know your status is. If you have just found out that you are positive and you want some help with that, because there is a stigma around it which needs to be we need to eradicate, but that stigma is still there. And if you need help with your HIV status, if you're positive and you want someone to turn to, there is a charity called Brigstow, and they will help you with that and provide guidance. Just like to throw that in.
Awesome, yeah.
I think as part of the NHS service, they will put those who have sadly caught whatever STI it might be in the case of HIV, they will direct you towards charity. I mean, there's the Eddystone Trust provide that as well. Part of one of their programs is a one-to-one, very similar to what I think you're talking about there. And I think there's a Umbrella, not to be confused with Umbrella down in Reading, who support Birmingham and the South Midlands. So there are those charities and organisations out there that just do a fantastic job in providing that support. But the NHS says obviously they'll direct you. But thanks for that, John.
That's fair.
Anytime.
I was just lost someone. So I think it's a very important topic. I think I think we've talked about really the importance of kink and fetish at Pride. We've got so much education between us six. We're very prevalent on safe sex, how to do sex safely, RAC, so risk assessed consensual kink. That's all the stuff that we all are very key about and we all like to educate about. But I think obviously we're talking about, so Pride organisers need to catch up and go, oh, actually they're important there. They want to be themselves. They want to be here. They've got so much education. They've got so much history. Yeah, we need them there. That'd be so much better for our community. But what can us as individuals and us as groups actually do to get involved with prides? Like, Pride didn't come to me, I went to Pride. I don't know if people want to talk about that and how to get involved with prides. I don't know, Rogue, if you had something to say quickly.
Yeah, just very, very quickly. I'm neurodiverse. I have Asperger's. I have ADHD. I have talked about it in my YouTube show, which has moved to AVN Stars. That was a quick little plug. Sorry. Hey. Going to like Pride festivals and afterwards, and it's also crowded and people want pictures of you in all the gear and everything. If I didn't have my headspace, then I wouldn't be able to be there, simply because too many people causes a sensory overload. But you know, when I used to go for a cigarette, because I quit smoking, when I used to go for a cigarette, I'd still have people crowding around me. Thanks, guys. I'd still have people crowding around me trying to get pictures, even though I'm not in the headspace. I'm not. My hood's not on. I'm trying to chill out and kind of reset my brain so I can take on more people. But it's really difficult when it's just a constant on stream. So I think having like at Pride festivals a safe, quiet area for especially for neurodiverse people to go to, just so that they can reset, chill out, de-people as I call it, so that they can then face what's coming next and get more involved.
I just realised I was mute. And I think that's really important. I think, and also you obviously saying it on this platform, saying we need a neurodiverse area because this is the importance of it. If Pride organizer goes around and says, no, I'm not going to give it to you, then I don't know what they're doing, because there's an evident problem and there's a really easy solution. Just give an area in a quiet area where you have got sensory stuff, where you're able to get away, put some ear defenders on, having ear defenders to hire and wear throughout the parade or at the end. Perfect, easy solution.
Definitely.
And we need to say that to Pride organisers. Say, look, these are what we can do. This is what we can do. Do it.
The other thing is that I would never go to a Pride parade not as a pup, simply because I can't do people. If I'm not Rogue, I can't process it all. I have been to London Pride, this was years ago, and I've been called a freak at London Pride because I was wearing my pup stuff from some bystanders, and it just, it totally ruined the whole day for me, that I was out there to celebrate who I was, to be called a freak, and I knew, and it has affected me greatly for all of these years. And this was my first ever Pride as a pup. So just having those safe spaces to kind of reset, take yourself away and bring yourself back to the front would be really, really helpful, in my opinion.
I think a lot of it, to be honest, Rogue, well, first of all, I mean, that is really a very sad story. Thank you for sharing it, because I think many of us within the fetish community have been subject to that. I mean, I've been on small Pride events in full gear, and virtually everyone on the parade has steered away from the leather-clad pervy uncle or whatever they considered I was, because they just didn't understand or they didn't know. But to turn it around to your point there, Thumper, about how to educate the kind of organizers through these events, this is kind of what we do, us movers and shakers, us title holders and us club organizers and us planners and presidents of this, that and the other, because we're the ones that have got the information at our fingertips. Most of the people within our communities, our fetish communities, they just want to join in the fun. They're not interested in the politics, and if they think there's politics, they'll steer away from it. And I've only got 2 words to say to that, and that's Rhonda Pride. And if any of you know the Rhonda Pride last year story, where clearly a committee who were a little ignorant as to what the presence of fetish, of those in the fetish community would have upon their local community in Rhondda in South Wales, they clearly weren't very educated, because they put a ban on it. So there was going to be no, I'm looking it up again now, no bondage wear or fetish wear was initially allowed to be worn on their Pride parade, because they felt that it wasn't family friendly, and that it would cause a lot of negativity. Well, there was quite a lot of pressure on them, not just from fetish groups, but also from the wider LGBTQ plus community. And they did a very rapid U-turn, not before it had hit the national press. And they probably felt more embarrassed that they hadn't got the information at their disposal. So if we can do anything to change the minds, that's our job. That's what we're here to do. So, you know, I mean, I'd happily talk to any councillor or minister or mayor or whatever about anything, you know, and try and convince them otherwise if they were feeling a little bit uncertain as to whether we should be included or not. And the idea of a safe space for all of us, I think, is fantastic. And I bet you there'd be more people who weren't wearing fetish banging the door to come in and talk to us than there would be wanting to stay away. So stay strong, Rogue. We'll get there. Honestly, we will. We will.
I was just going to mention about the Attitude is Everything Charter. And although there are some studies that have been done about the intersection of neurodiversity and LGBTQIA+, I found anecdotally in my private practice and the clients that I see that there is a high incidence of crossover there. And so what you can do is you can go, there's this thing called the Attitude is Everything Charter, and you can sign up, and it means providing things like ear defenders, quiet spaces, even things like accessible toilets, okay, that lots of Pride festivals actually don't provide as a matter of course. So there is a network there is a framework and a toolkit there for people to provide these types of spaces for everyone that comes to Pride.
That's amazing, and it's just getting that
get
that education out there. So yeah, to go, Steve, something.
So just picking up on that as well, certainly from what Rogue said, and also from Zaina as well. We when we were actually at, and I will name the Pride because they were absolutely amazing. When we were at Warwickshire Pride last year, we've always ensured that we make sure that we have an accessible trans changing area for individuals that want to attend Pride and want somewhere safe and accessible to go to be able to change and freshen up and basically just have somewhere where they can come and chill out. But what we actually noticed, and this is particularly relevant to what Rogue said, was Pride itself can be such an overwhelming experience, certainly for the first time for a lot of people that have never experienced actually being comfortable in themselves in an environment where everybody just wants you to be yourself. And that itself can almost take you to a real extreme. And what we actually found is that we need to be providing not just a trans accessible changing area, but also an area, as you've said, where neurodiverse individuals are able to just come and I think that the words you used were absolutely perfect, to de-people, because sometimes it can just be so to the extreme. It's such a good experience that you just don't know how to compute with that. And because you've never experienced that before, it almost takes you to an extreme where you kind of on the borderline of having a meltdown, and you just don't know how you want to be able to process that. And I love the fact what you said before as well, Zaina, with regards to the Attitude is Everything Charter, because I'm quite lucky that the Prides that I see in front of me here, I have the absolute pleasure of standing at the front of Reading Pride, leading the Pride Parade last year in my pup gear, carrying a flag, and I've never ever felt prouder of actually being in a hometown pride, doing that on behalf of my umbrella. I also did the same. John said before that with the Rhondda Pride issue, and last year we actually attended the Pride that was in, I can't remember, what was it? That lovely one in Wales that we went to. Was it Llanelli Pride?
Llanwit?
Which was brilliant. Sorry, John?
Oh, was it? Well, Llanwit Major had one, and also Barry had their first one last year, as in Gavin and Stacey Barry. Both fantastic events.
I think we attended Llanelli Pride again. I was in full pup gear for that at the same time, and everybody was amazing. And it was such a lovely, wholesome little pride in it. And I think it was a community centre. It was absolutely. I think to actually see that prides are actually starting to be more inclusive, but it's just a shame it kind of took a little bit of a shake up as far as the uneducated few to kind of bring it to the front and start people having these very healthy conversations about why it's important to include everything across the LGBTQ plus community in order to represent everybody, but at the same time making sure they're accessible and making sure you have these safe spaces for individuals that have never experienced this sort of inclusivity in their lives.
I just wondered, unfortunately, we're going to have to sort of start to wrap up here, because unfortunately we are going to go into the Q&A section. I would like to say that we obviously do speak to your organisers, speak to people about it. We are going to get a fetish. There was supposed to be a Kink and Fetish area this year, Pride in Gloucestershire, but we're aiming to do it in 2021 for the first time. I've also you might be very happy about this. I just got a message from the chairperson for Pride in Gloucestershire, JJ. He said, can you mention that we are currently working on an area at Pride in Gloucestershire for neurodiversity for 2021 for Rogue. So they are definitely going to be working on a neurodiverse area next year for you and for the whole neurodiverse community.
Brilliant.
Which
Thank
I think is
you.
amazing, and I think that's definitely a step in the right direction for Pride, and definitely Pride in Gloucestershire. So we're going to go on to the Q&A. So I think I've got one lined up on my second screen. I've got about 3 screens going on at once, just to try and get all the dynamics. So one of the questions that I had is, the mist has been taken out of Mr. Puppy, now it's Puppy UK. What do we think about taking the Mister out of all the other titles and try and make it diverse and accessible for all? And I know that some other countries have done a Mux title. Some have got a Mr. and Mrs. and a Mux. What do we think about that? Put it out there. I saw John weep a little bit.
I'll pick up on it a bit as there's a pregnant pause. I think what the pups have done is absolutely fantastic. I remember talking to Hunter and Boomy about this not too long ago. I thought it was a great thing. I think from the leather point of view, Europe are far better at doing things than the UK are generally when it comes to titles. And within, say, Germany alone, there's probably around 22 leather titles, Mr. Leather Berlin and so on and so forth. But some of the more kind of forward-thinking countries, like Holland does have a Mus Leather Holland, and some of the countries like that. So I think in time we might see more of it. Whether it's a competition that is open, say, within the leather community, I couldn't really comment because we don't get hundreds of people apply for the competition. But yeah, it'd be great to see. Why not? Why not? We're simply ambassadors for our communities. That's all we are. It doesn't matter what we're like underneath, I suppose. That's my comment. That's my 2 pennies worth.
I feel like one of the issues with simply just removing the gendered prefix from a title is that doesn't necessarily prove a commitment to inclusion. Whereas if they were to start a Miss Leather UK and have a female title holder alongside, then that's saying very clearly we need a female title holder. Whereas you could say we're no longer calling it Mr. Leather, the contest is now open to all genders, and still only have men run. Like, in order to create that change, you have to start from the ground up. And I think that in a lot of cases that will mean, you mentioned, was it Holland somewhere?
Yeah.
Where is that has a miss?
The lovely Karen West is.
Yes, I've met her, and I remember when I was speaking about like title holding with someone before, they were saying the first year that they ran, I can't remember if it was one of the European or one of the United States contests, but the first year that they ran Miss, they had 2 applicants. The second year they had 7, because the first one will always be a bit slow. And in order to create that momentum and to make sure that women and non-binary people feel included within the community, I think it's important that we first give them a platform to title hold, and then maybe merge the contests later when they've both picked up a level of popularity, I suppose. That's something that we've considered with there's talk of trying to organize a UK Boot Black title. I believe this is one of the projects of Alistair, who's the current European title holder and a member of the UK Boot Blacks Association. And yeah, when that happens, we probably will make it gender neutral, because bootblacking is skills based. So being able to have as many people as possible kind of makes sense, because it's not about promoting an image, it's about promoting a skill. Whereas I think for some of the other titles, having it be gendered does kind of make sense. And it would, in terms of being inclusive, it would be more about looking at kind of how we bring things together and how we raise popularity with leather and rubber and puppy and all of the titles.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, if you take, I mean, within the UK, within the leather community in the UK, there is a Mr. Leather Wales, the lovely Angus. There's a Mr. Leather UK, the lovely John. That's it. There's no Mr. Leather Scotland. There's no Mr. Leather Northern Ireland. And one of the projects that might take me years to achieve, 2 years I set myself without COVID, was to actually, because I chat very closely with the guys in Scotland. I'd love to see a Mr. Leather England and a Mr. Leather Scotland, because then on the back of that, as you rightly say, Toko, then you have a platform on which you can build. At the moment, we've barely got a step onto the platform, let alone a solid base to work from. So, you know, I'd love to see more of it, but it's all about the integrity of the brand more than anything. You know, do people see there being a value in there being titles? And lots of people have lots of opinions. So yeah, I know what I want to do.
That's great. We've got another question that's from the comments. What can we do to make the kink community less intimidating for newcomers? Because we can be quite scary in leather. Look how scary John is, just sitting there in full leather, looking really scary.
I tattoos, personally.
Always, he keeps muting and muting by accident.
I can disrobe if you prefer.
No, I think that'll be safe for another time. So
another time. The awkwardness then was fabulous.
You lie.
Anyone would like to take that question? Let's go back to the question. Come on.
I know we can all be really daunting at first, and especially when it comes to meeting us at Pride events. Now, like Rogue has gone into earlier, sometimes people go into this like sensory overload. It's their first Pride. They've also seen somebody in a full leather bluff costume. Then they've seen a guy on in a pup mask with a tail on, and then you've got someone like me who's just shiny. You know, it can all be a bit overwhelming. I think personally, as event organisers, we should host like soft meets. So like, I know a couple of people. So Sorry, I'm just reading a message again through. It can be. I think we should, as event organisers, do soft meets. So something we've discussed is carrying on with the Zoom calls, even after lockdown. So like carrying on with, come in and we'll literally just sit like we are now, but chatting, not filming it, just talking what you're into, what do you think you're into, how have you, and how that made you feel. Okay, cool. Potentially also alcohol-free meets where you, because a lot of the time when people get drunk, they get loud, they get rowdy, they get horny. I'm not gonna lie, I can't lie, and alcohol, as much as it gives some people a confidence, will then do a disservice, I think. So I think to get people into the scene, doing it at Pride isn't always the way forward, because doing it at Pride, people are generally celebrating who they are, and yeah, they absolutely can come over and speak to people, but I think it is daunting. But I think personally that having soft events may help newcomers more so than Kink at Pride.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say on that is that with Pride in Gloucestershire, we did try to think about this as well, and that was one of the key aspects, is how do we speak to people who are interested or not unsure. So we wanted to do a nice area so everyone could celebrate, have a drink, some education, some stalls. We also wanted to have an area away from the area where it was education, talking about safe sex, consent, rack, and also away from all of the big leather men in huge groups of 20. It's just me and my friend or someone else just standing there on our own in a 3x3 tent with all the material that's possible, and allowing them, if they're interested, to come to us in a smaller one-on-one situation, which might be less daunting, and that we thought that might be a nice way to go about it with Pride. But it's all up to debate, and obviously people can always message
but I think
me or
back. So I've got to bet it. I think we have a responsibility as people within the gay community, whether we're representing a title or otherwise, to actually be proactive about it and identify that there are people feeling worried and wary, whether it be at a social event or whatever. And a smile and a pat on the shoulder can quite often lead to a small chat, which makes all the difference. And I know that from personal experience both ways, you know, and we've all had that, I'm sure, where we felt absolutely so under pressure when we've gone to events, and then just a smile or, you know, a few words from somebody has made a massive difference. And that's our responsibility, not just us old buggers like me, us intimidating leathermen who go around in our packs of 20 or whatever, yeah, looking for fresh blood, you know. But you know, it is, I think we all do. And I mean, I was in London on Sunday at the Leather Social. They're fantastically well organized. Of course, we all like to be in a safe environment, but it didn't stop people waving, smiling, you know, and a quick few words before we got told off by Stefan halfway down the stairs or something like that. So, you know, it's, and you could see a few people feeling a little out of their depth there, and it does make a difference. It really does. So I think it's on us as well, you know.
Yeah, I was just going to chip in that there's an amazing charity who are actually also on this group at the moment, which do amazing education for kink and general sexual orientations, gender identities. Isn't that right, Steve?
I knew you were going to throw a plug in there, some man. I literally resisted the urge to whip out the guide, and I'm doing well. But if you want me to, I can. We are absolutely all over being as 100% and more inclusive of absolutely every single sexuality, orientation, gender, kink, fetish, and everything else on top within what we identify as the Pride umbrella, because there is a huge spectrum underneath everything, and there's more and more and more being discovered. I think at the last count we were up to about 330 different flags in a guide that started off 5 years ago as an A3 piece of paper. Now it's 32 pages, and it's, you know, as more and more people are becoming more comfortable about expressing themselves in a way where they may not fit into one particular pocket or one particular area, and actually they start to explore and they start to feel as though they are included. And this is what excites me every single year when we run a new guide out and we start to talk to the community and when we go to all these different Pride events, because we actually get these brilliant responses from people. And I'm going to use almost a personal example, which was when we actually had a young person come to our stall and actually say that they were able to come out as non-binary in their school. And what was even better is, rather than people reacting to them by going, "Oh, what's that?" what they actually got as a reaction was, "I know what that is." And that's such a huge achievement to be able to get to at that point. We're not there yet. We're nowhere near there yet. But we're also starting to make headway with regards to kink and fetish being included, and certainly more inclusive within Pride. And we are better educating people and holding these sort of talks, and just seeing the engagement in the chat room. And the fact that we had like 25, 26 people actively watching and engaging and communicating with us is absolutely huge. And it's a huge achievement. And I think Pride in Gloucester and Thumper and everybody involved in this particular call really do need to give yourselves a pat on the back for just being so involved and engaging. Essentially, people within the community, there could be people in that chat room right now that had never even thought about some of these areas that we've spoken about tonight, and have actually had some really, really good questions that they would have never asked elsewhere answered, which is absolutely fantastic. But if people do want to know a little bit more about what we do, you can find this on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the other ridiculous social media platforms that we're trying to keep up with. Just type in the words "My Umbrella" into your search engine, and at some point a picture of me or someone else will pop up, and you just click on that and it all looks fabulous.
Just a little shameless plug, I see. No, that's great. We even work with you as Animaging. I think we're in talks with updating the Kink and Fetish side and putting more flags on there, putting the trans leather flag and all those sort of new flags that are coming out. One from Kate Glanfield. I don't know if many of you know who Kate Glanfield is. I met her today. She is a lovely woman who's the founder of Transgloss and also interacts with Sparkle. Just as people start messaging, my whole question disappears. With isolation caused by COVID, are there any ways the kink communities can support each other, and what does it look like? I don't mind, I'll just quickly butt in. There is a great Zoom call. I think, John, you've joined it, the kink isolation chat. Is it one? I forgot what they're called now.
Let me check.
John Mr. Leather. They set up a chat. They've set up a new Twitter, haven't they?
Okay.
They have, but there was basically we did have a Zoom chat for quite a while actually, with Andrew Holt, who's Mr. Rubber UK at the moment, and lovely Jason Moore, and that was more aimed at just sort of talking to people who wanted to, who were feeling incredibly isolated, and that was a very positive thing. Maybe I think we perhaps could have kept it going a little bit longer, but it served a definite purpose, and I think it helped people get out of the rut so many of us feel like we're in right now, to be honest, Joshua.
I found with the online Zoom chats over lockdown, it's helped a lot of people discover their kinks as well, and they've not had the fear of, oh my god, what if I go and there's these 20 herds of leather guys, as we were talking about earlier. It's John looks terrified right now. I don't know if you can see it.
I don't know. Is there a collective name for Leathermen? Is there
a gaggle?
A perverted uncleness of Leathermen? I don't know.
A perversion of leather. We could call them a perversion of Leathermen. That's great. Trademark. Just gonna hold that on right now.
Yeah.
I think I found with the Zoom calls, it's actually helped. Okay, it's not been an ideal situation. People have wanted to get out in their rubber and go out for drinks and meet with their friends, but on a silver lining of having the Zoom calls, I've had a number of people come into these chats that I've seen on Facebook before behind masks, but I've never spoken to because they're terrified of coming out into the world. And they've even started, like, we had one, he showed up at a bar the other day with a group of pups because he now had met them through the Zoom calls. So he felt confident enough to come out for a drink because he'd met them online, yes, but it's awesome to see. It was also like just to be able to go up to him and be like, I've spoken to you online. Oh, thank God, you look great. So great to meet you. So silver linings, I suppose. I just think positivity needs to be brought up at the moment because there was so much negative going around. So
Yeah.
I was gonna.
I found the social media of since lockdown started, there has been regular Zoom calls which are run by Novi, who is current Mr. Leather Wales, and English Leathermaster, who is like a life coach. And they have their own Twitter now. It's at Kinksters Social. And yeah, they'll post the links to the chats there. They are on Wednesday at 9 p.m. and then Sunday at 4 p.m. every week.
I was trying to get them to do a little social afterwards tonight, but unfortunately, a bit short notice, and they didn't want to change their schedule. But they are definitely. I've joined them once or twice when I was living at home with parents and having to not be myself. I'm not really out to my parents. I'm definitely not out as being kinky to my parents, and it was really hard time for me from going every weekend, pretty much going to a different pub or social or going to see some kinky / fetish friends, to go into living with my parents, now being a repressed queer again, which was like 4 years ago for me, and it just felt so strange. And that really was a great outlet for me to just call people who were like-minded, got away in a little cupboard, was whispering on a little mic going, yes, I like leather, and having just a lovely chat with them was really helpful. I don't know if Zaina, you want to put a bit more of a therapy sort of spin on it, how obviously this can affect a community and how it works.
Absolutely. This is, I like to describe this as a mass mental health experiment with absolutely no warning whatsoever. And it has had some good sides. John was saying about people who have discovered stuff around themselves. I've had I do couples work, and some of the couples have actually really improved during lockdown. Some couples haven't, and it's been down to kind of your resilience levels and your coping ability and your strategies. I have had people that have gone, and same as you, some have gone back, had to isolate with their parents, had to conceal who they are. And as a psychotherapist, one of the largest and easiest and quickest ways to get anybody to psychological distress is through concealment. So a lot of the work that I've been doing with clients has been around maintenance, about getting them through that time. There's been people that, you know, that they've lost loved ones, they've lost jobs, they've lost their homes. This has been a really difficult time. And any amount of community we can foster and feel we belong to. And I think one of the things we also need to remember is that every hour on Zoom is equivalent to 2 hours in person. And that's because our brain and our bodies don't match. So our brain and our body is fighting because we can see you, but we can't actually see you. And that's why it's a lot more tiring. So if at the end of the day, you've only got 20 minutes to dip into a social because you are absolutely flat out, totally go in there and say, I wanted to be here. I wanted to find some sense of belonging, but I don't have the bandwidth to be here for 2 hours or whatever. Get what you can, when you can, how you can.
That's really important. There are calls out there, but there are people out there to call. You can call friends, pick up a phone. Text messages are I hate texting myself. I always like a phone call. Hearing someone's voice, I feel, is so much better than a text message. Ringing someone or joining a Zoom call will help, and just try and get that connectivity. I think, Steve, you had some questions. It's got to be the last question, unfortunately. I'd love to answer all the questions. I'd love to be here till like 3 o'clock in the morning. But some people are like, no, not 3 o'clock, no, 3 o'clock. So, Steve.
No, sorry. That me and the 20 leather guys that are here, we've got to start.
I just want my dog bed.
Yeah, I think we'll all want sleep in a minute. So, Steve, what's the question that you had? You had quite a few. Do you want to just mention one question that you had proposed to you?
And try and address it, because it's an absolutely amazing question, and literally that was basically everything that came up on it, and I've tried to highlight the key points, and I'm going to just very quickly filter through it, because an extra question came into the chat that I've just kind of had to try and extract and try and work out. But basically,
we've got 5 minutes left. 5 minutes.
About inclusivity at Pride events and making sure that they're available and that they're welcoming to everybody, and family-friendly events. And Zaina very kindly, from her perspective as an individual that has children, gave an absolutely fantastic response, which I think we can all agree with as well at the same time. However, in response to that, I've got to try and read it out now so I actually get it. Okay, this is, and I quote, "People are talking with adult understanding and perspective. For example, Fortnite is a really good platform for making friends all over the world, but it's also a violent shooting game. And that's not really appropriate for 5-year-old kids to play." So what they were trying to make the point of is that raising awareness and acceptance of differences is great, but you have to work together with other people who learn and understand at different rates. It's bad enough doing this with adults. To carry on in the same or similar fashion with kids is overwhelming and overstimulating with information. Let kids be kids. You can't expect them to run on the same clock as adults. It's expecting too much. How do we feel about that? It's a lot to try and get in, but as far as I can understand what the individual, and this is actually a very good friend of mine that is literally reaching out, wanting to understand more about this. How do we feel about that? Because I completely agree that I think we do need to go at a particular pace. And I think what John suggested earlier is almost like a soft meat, not necessarily just for those people in the LGBTQ plus community, but also give an opportunity for those individuals that would want to identify as our army of allies to understand the community better, and certainly to understand what Kink and Fetish is about better, so that they're better prepared and educated for any questions that, for example, their little ones may be putting to them should they at some point have a conversation. Because we all know what goes around schools, and you only have to, one child only has to learn one swear word, and it goes right the way through year 7. How do we feel about that?
I guess I kind of always say when children are asking questions, they're usually asking questions at the point where they can accept an answer. Okay, so this is not about taking a 5-year-old. I've got a 5-year-old, right? I wouldn't be taking my 5-year-old along and going, right, okay, so this is a butt plug, and these are cuffs, and because that's not the premise. And I guess this is about the adults involved, and lots of people that are, I've spoken about Section 28, and I've spoken about how people that are now got kids that had no education like this at all at school. So this is about people looking for inclusive books to read with their children. There's a really, really great one that I take around to schools because I'm a Stonewall Schools role model as well. So I go around and I talk to kids about this, and there's books about pride, there's books about people being transgender, about parents. Our children should BLM books. Our children should have this kind of wide but basic knowledge at a level that suits them. When we aren't in the business of trying to make someone into something they're not. This is just about imparting true, honest, transparent information at the point at which that child is able to hear it.
I think also there's a real danger with not exposing young people and children to the diversity of the LGBT community. Like, I remember, so as I realized, you can't tell from my t-shirt, my main thing is boots, and I realized that I was into that sexually before I realized that I was into men. And I think that because I had never seen any representation of fetish, I did have a lot of shame surrounding that. And if we allow kink to have a presence at Pride, you know, I'm not suggesting that people be actively engaging in things. I don't think children are ready to see people getting whipped, but they certainly won't be damaged by seeing someone wearing leather, and it might help them learn and accept more about themselves, either at that moment or at a future point in their life.
Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to cut it there. I literally have people swarming around me going, stop it, we're over the time. And I've got to say thank yous. So I'd like to thank everyone who has spoken today. You've all given a valued idea of kink and fetish, but not also just kink and fetish. I think we talked about a lot about the LGBTQ plus community, and a lot of important things that we really need to speak about more. I also got another message off the chair of Pride in Gloucester. He's been loving me today. He's been messaging me a lot all through the stream. He says, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who has given their time to this really important discussion. We at Pride in Gloucestershire want to ensure that we are inclusive as possible. Everyone is included at Pride in Gloucestershire, and we will strive to work to ensure that everyone from the trans community, the kink and fetish community, neurodiverse community, friends, families and allies, and etc. are welcome. Thank you again for talking on this platform and being open about the issues and personal experiences, as well as the educational aspect. We look forward to welcoming you to Pride 2021 in Pride in Gloucestershire, and you've all got an invitation to come. We'd all love to see you. I will be there, and it would be great to see you. I think that's all the time we've got. Thank you so much. Give yourselves a pat on the back. We are going to be opening a chat afterwards. It's going to be Pilo Pets, so that's our event, Pilo Pets. .live, pilopets.live. Not everyone in this chat can stay. We will have to have 5 minutes to get all of us to have a pee break, have a little bit of a breather, but just hold on. We'll be able to open a social room and we can have a little chat afterwards. So thank you from all of us. Bye-bye. All a wave. Bye.
Bye.